Action. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Chemical Man Podcast show. Today, I want to talk about you're applying for a job. They got to do background checks on you. I see a lot of people ask about, well, hey, I might have a record or I might have something on my background. You think they'll hire me? Or, I messed up when I was younger and I have this, I might have this on my background on that. And I want to tell you right now, companies do background checks. So just right off the bat, companies do background checks. If you think you have something on your background that's going to cause you to not get a job, well, the best thing you need to do is pay the money and run a background check on yourself. It's not that expensive. Run the background check. Look and see if you might have see if it's still on there. I remember I had a rental house and I was doing a background check on someone, and it still had her DWI on there from years and years ago. That was still on her background. I was like, hey, when is this? And it was 20 years ago, but it was still on her background. So these are things you need to look at. When you're applying for a big company and they're going to run a background check on you, think, man, have I done anything? Did I have any tickets? Normal ticket stuff like that's not going to really bother. If you've been in jail for certain things, it might. It could throw a red flag on certain things. But, just be mindful of that. You're going to a company that's going to pay you good money, that's going to expect you to do your job. And the last thing they want is someone out there with a bad background to come out there. And next thing you know, something happens and they're like, damn, we hired this guy. And he messed up everything and messed up for everything. So yes, everybody has made mistakes. I get it. We've all made mistakes. But just be truthful to yourself, and if you think there's something on there, just take the time and do a background check on yourself. That's the best thing to do. That way you can see everything on there. If you say you've got a college degree and you don't, remember they're going to run a background check and they're going to be able to tell if you graduated from X university or whatever. Now, if you can be like some of them other people, say, hey, I worked at Circuit City and I was a manager there. Well, Circuit City's closed down, so you do what you want on that one. It's hard to really look at that one, but just be mindful of that. Think about these things. We've hired people where they couldn't pass the background check. They did great in the interview, did wonderful, but as soon as we did the background check, man, we couldn't get it. We've had people have problems with their background checks, and they had to come in like weeks later because they had to do more investigation on why is it throwing a red flag here. Let's do some more. They had to do more investigation on what's causing this flag to be thrown on this background check. Think about that. Hiring one guy, he's supposed to start on one day, then start till 3 weeks later because of the background check. Eventually passed it. And everything was good, but there were some discrepancies in there. Make sure when you fill out your applications, you're truthful. Make sure when you do your resumes, you're truthful. Put the dates down on your resume. I've done resumes where people say, well, I don't really want to put the dates down because it looks like I'm job hopping. I get it, but you still want to put the dates down. They still want to know when you're employed. They want to know you're employed from this time to this time. Not just, okay, it says you worked at McCoy's, but when did you work at McCoy's? Stuff like that. Always be truthful up front. It's better in the long run to help you get the job you're wanting to look for on there. But yeah, just remember, background checks are very important. Don't think you can squeeze through. And if you think you've got any kind of issues, run your background check it yourself, have someone look it over for you. It's not going to be that hard. It's very inexpensive to do that. That way you're prepared that if anything happens, you're like, well, yeah, I did have that on there. And then even if they run a background check and they call you up and say, hey, can you explain, you have some discrepancies in your dates on these, can you explain? And then, be truthful. Yes, I was working here and I was working there at the same time, but I left this job to go to this other job. Just do that. It's very simple on that too. Because I want everybody to get the job they want and I want everybody to make the money they want, but let's make sure that, you get picked. Heck, we had one boss that tried to hire somebody that he met at a dog park, and he couldn't pass the background check either. And another thing too, let's we'll talk about background checks, but let's get in. So you pass the background check, and then you go through medical. We've had people not pass the medical portion where they couldn't blow into the tube. They were having trouble blowing the tube. We've had people come in and couldn't pass the drug test. I'm like, dude, you're getting a good job. How can you not pass the drug test? Stuff like that. And think about that. Don't go out and do all these experimental drugs like a month prior or whatever. Some places will do hair follicle tests, so think about that too. You can't go in there and shave your whole body and be like, look, sir, we need a hair from somewhere. So think about that. Some will do hair follicle. Some will just do the random drug test. Some will do that. They want to make sure that you're not on dope or anything when you come in there. So be mindful of that background check too. If you have any problems with your hearing, let them know ahead of time before you get medical. Say, hey, I don't hear so good. That way, when you get up there and you don't pass the hearing test very well, at least they have knowledge of saying, hey, this is the reason why I can't pass the hearing test, or this is the reason why I can't hear so good in my right ear. Let them know about that ahead of time. Just anything that can help you out, just always let them know ahead of time. It's the best bet on there. So between background checks, your medical exam, think about all those things, because I would hate for someone to come in there and not pass any one of those and lose a good opportunity on that. I'm not saying you got to be Mr. Strongman or Strongwoman to come in there. Just be somewhat healthy, and if you have a problem with your ears or you have a problem with other things, let them know ahead of time. That way, when the hearing test comes back and it shows you failed, at least say, hey, okay, well, you told me you can't hear in the right ear very well, and it's proven. You're absolutely right. Your right ear is a little bit worse than your left ear. All those things to take in consideration on that. So if you have any questions, hit me up. Got my email below. Resumes, interview questions, whatever you need. I'm here to help. I'd be more than happy to help anybody I can. Anybody got any other questions about background checks or anything, hit me up below. People see the video, post down below saying, yes, I had a background, my background flagged something, but I was able to talk about it, but I still got the job, stuff like that. But anyway, everybody have a safe day. Be careful out there, and I'll talk to y'all later. All right, out.